it inserts upon the corner of the mouth. So it draws the corners of the mouth laterally when it contracts. Risorius. Now, in this particular diagram here, this particular picture, we see my favorite, one of my favorite muscles. It's second. My favorite is the sternocleidomastoid. But this muscle here, the sheet muscle here, I like it a lot because when we dissected cadavers, it was one of the first muscles that we dissected free. It's called the platysma. The platysma arises from fascia overlying the pectoralis major, and it passes like a sheet over the clavicle along the superficial aspect of the neck, and then inserts around the mandible and maxilla and the surrounding soft tissue. It will contribute to pulling the lower lip down. Okay. It will contribute to opening the mandible like this, opening the mouth. And it also contributes to tensing the skin of the neck. For instance, when you do this, when you're shaving. You know, if you want to tense that skin. Platysma. It's very superficial, meaning that it's just deep to the skin. All right. Again, all of these being innervated by 7. This is a cadaver. What I want to do now, we'll get spooky in here, is I want to point to some muscles, and you tell me what I'm pointing to. Okay, so let's try this. Brittany, what is this muscle right here?
The zygomaticus major.
Zygomaticus major, that's correct. Now, let's see. Jacob, what is this muscle labeled number 3?
Orbicularis oculi.
Orbicularis oculi. Brittany Mayer, what is this muscle right here?
That's the zygomatic minor.
Zygomaticus minor, that's correct. Jordan, what is this muscle here labeled number 10?
Is that the levator labii superioris?
Superioralis.
Superioralis.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. Lauren, what is this muscle labeled number 14 here? Well, you're getting there. It's the depressor labii inferioralis. It lowers the lower lip. Okay? What is this muscle 13 here? Sarah.
The orbicularis oris.
Yeah, what is that muscle used for?
Pursing lips. Perductus.
Yeah, pursing your lips. Yeah, puckering. Puckering. All right. Let's see now. Ebony. Ebony Watson, E-Dub. Yeah, you. Ebony, I want you to look real closely at number 23 here. What is this muscle?
Where?
23. This one right here. Say it again? No, no. Does anybody recognize that muscle?
The masseter.
Masseter, yeah. Is the masseter a muscle of facial expression?
No.
Nay, nay. It's a muscle of what?
Chewing.
Mastication. We like to use the word mastication, Colin.
I was the only one who said it.
Huh?
I said I was the only one who said it.
Yeah.
You actually would.
Yeah. It's a muscle of mastication. Now, so, where does the masseter originate? Abby.
That's a good question.
Casper, do you remember? The zygomatic arch. And then it's going to descend to insert upon the angle and the ramus of the mandible down here. such that when it contracts, it pulls up. It elevates the mandible so that you can bite down.
So it inserts into the mandible and what else?
Well, when it contracts, it causes elevation of the mandible so that the teeth bite down. Okay?
So that's the only thing that it inserts into?
That's right. Into
Yeah,
the
he said like,
ramus
yeah,
Oh, the ramus.
and angle of the mandible. Now, if you look real closely, these fibers that make up the masseter are vertically oriented. That's key. That's key. Because a lot of people on the practical will confuse the masseter with the buccinator. This muscle right here that runs in part deep to the masseter is called the buccinator. Its fibers are oriented horizontally.
so that'd be 20.
Number 20.
Okay.
It originates from the molar aspect of the maxilla and mandible. Okay? And then it forms the soft tissue of the cheek. It inserts medially onto the orbicularis oris. So it originates from these bones above and below the maxilla and the mandible, and it comes medially to insert upon this soft tissue here around the corner of the mouth, the orbicularis oris. The buccinator forms a lot of the soft tissue of the cheek. We refer to it as the blowing and sucking muscle. So this muscle blows and sucks. How many people? What's that? The buccinator, right. How many people here have played an instrument? What instrument did you play, Colin?
Trumpet?
So you're very familiar with the buccinator.
I would assume so.
Yeah, you have to tense the buccinator when you blow into that mouthpiece. Okay, when you form your embouchure, if you will. By the same token, a baby who's nursing, when they suck, they have to tense the buccinator to draw milk into their mouth. When we eat, when we chew, we tense the buccinator to keep food positioned between the teeth, so it doesn't get trapped between, let's say, the teeth and the cheek, or the gum and the cheek. So it keeps food properly positioned between the teeth. Interestingly enough, the buccinator is called the trumpeter's muscle. Okay? Trumpeter's muscle. It tenses the cheeks so that you can either blow or suck. Now, it's innervated, of course, by 7. One thing you need to know about the buccinator is that the parotid duct pierces it. So if you see a muscle that's being pierced by the parotid duct, you know it's the buccinator. That parotid duct is going to empty right next to the second upper molar. By the way, you see all of these nerve fibers? These are all branches of cranial nerve 7 that's passing through this parotid gland. So as it's passing through, it's doing this. It's branching. And those branches are providing innervation to the muscles of facial expression. Okay. Jasmine, take a look up here. What is this muscle number 28?
Is it the style?
Use your words.
Sternocleidomastoid.
That's it, the sternocleidomastoid. The sternocleidomastoid. What nerve innervates the sternocleidomastoid? Do you know? It's 11, which is known as what? The accessory nerve, yes. Very good. Okay, here we have an actress.
Very good.
Yeah, who is demonstrating certain maneuvers involving the muscles of facial expression. Okay? Here, it kind of looks like she's a little bit surprised to see maybe a love interest in the distance.
Which one?
This one right here. So she's exhibiting a little bit of surprise and then happiness. She's smiling. Okay? Now,
Because that looks exactly
what muscle
like.
is used here for wrinkling of the forehead and raising the eyebrows? The frontalis. Or you could say what? Occipital frontalis. Okay? Now, what about here? You see she's lifting the corners of the mouth and she's accentuating her nasolabial folds. What muscles are used for that little maneuver? The zygomaticus muscles, major and minor. Okay? So she's at a restaurant, she's eating, and in the distance she sees perhaps a fellow like Colin. And she demonstrates both surprise and delight. Now, she was just about to put something in her mouth
never uses
when she
zero
saw
in this
Colin,
situation.
and whatever she put in her mouth was very sour, it looks like. Okay? And she's reacting to that taste. She's closing her eyes in disgust. What muscle would be involved in eye closure like that?
Yeah.
Orbicularis oculi. And then at the tail end of that maneuver, where she exhibits disgust, she thinks back to Colin coming forward toward her, and she begins to pucker up. Okay? So we see a puckering movement here. What muscle is that? Orbicularis oris. Yes. Yes. Now, following the kiss, she exhibits a kind of funny expression like, I'm not sure. Okay? She kind of tenses the neck a little bit, as you can see there. What muscle would be demonstrated in this maneuver? The platysma, yeah. I don't recommend dating her, by the way.
The second one looks
That's
like
happening.
Jordan when I bring up personal life.
Oh my God.
I wasn't going to
Are
say
you
that.
still bitter about that? Literally.
Are we still
Oh.
talking about Jeff?
Oh.
Was that his name?
No, not at
The
all.
sound that came out of Colin's mouth means there's a new one.
There's a new fella in your life?
I don't know.
Clearly.
Well, let me say this. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you because I didn't know if you would rebound that quickly.
Don't blame Colin. He literally didn't say anything.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we saw this picture before. This is a person that's exhibiting a facial nerve palsy. You can tell because there's attenuation of the nasolabial fold and the corner of the mouth is beginning to sag. And that reflects weakness of the zygomaticus. Now, in this particular picture, we can't gauge upper facial weakness because the patient's not being asked to close their eyes. But my impression is that this is most likely a lower motor neuron lesion.
Sure.
And the reason being is that he also has a second lesion involving the what nerve? The abducens, yeah. Because he exhibits weakness of the lateral rectus, which is making his eye deviate inward. The reason I suspect it's lower motor neuron is that 6 and 7, their cranial nerve nuclei, are located right next to each other in the brainstem. So if he had a lesion in the brainstem, it would account for both of these findings. Okay. Here's a lady who exhibits myasthenia gravis. We said that myasthenia gravis is a condition, the etiology of which is autoimmune. In other words, the immune system produces antibodies against self. In this case, it's nicotinic M receptors.
You said N, nicotinic N?
Nicotinic M.
M.
M. Now, these antibodies can attack receptors within any muscles throughout the body, but they tend to attack the levator palpebrae superioris muscles. They also tend to attack the muscles of facial expression. And so we can see that she's got weakness of the levator palpebrae muscles, and she's also got some facial weakness here. Okay, as a result of these antibodies. If these antibodies cover or bind to those nicotinic M receptors, then that means that they displace or prevent acetylcholine from binding. Who was the famous person I told you had myasthenia gravis? You remember?
I do not.
No, because I didn't know who you were talking about whenever you said
Somebody's
it.
like husband or boyfriend.
Right, it was Jackie Onassis' husband. So his name,
Oh.
Jackie Kennedy's husband. His name was Aristotle Onassis. We said he always wore dark glasses. Now, how do you make the diagnosis? You inject this person with an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. For instance, there's one called neostigmine. It's going to block the activity of acetylcholinesterase, which, remember, sits in the neuromuscular junction and breaks down acetylcholine. So if you block the activity of that enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine, then it's going to allow acetylcholine to build up within that neuromuscular junction. And as it builds up, it competitively displaces those antibodies. And then suddenly the person retains the ability then to contract those muscles. So that sudden response to neostigmine, or an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, is diagnostic for myasthenia gravis. Everybody with me on that? Did y'all follow?
Yeah.
I used a lot of big words. Brittany Mayer, follow me on that? Okay. Now, we're coming back to some of these same muscles now. What I want to show you here is, what is this muscle here? Whose fibers are horizontal?
The-
Buccinator.
Yeah.
And we know it's the buccinator not only because the fibers are horizontal, but we have the parotid duct piercing it. It sits just deep to this other muscle that it's often confused with. This would be what? The masseter. It originates from the zygomatic arch. It attaches to the angle and ramus of the mandible. Okay. Here, we see the temporalis, another muscle of mastication. A lot of people describe this as a fan-like muscle. It fans out in its origin from the temporal bone. It inserts upon the coronoid process of the mandible. So when it contracts, it also elevates the mandible for chewing, but because some of these fibers are coming forward, it also retracts the mandible. Retracts means it pulls it back. So it causes elevation and retraction of the mandible. What they're showing you here is these cut off fibers from the masseter, by the way. Well, I want to point out something here. I
think
think
it just had a
everybody
seizure.
knows. Yeah, wake up. Everyone knows that Skinny is here to help you, right?
Not
Yes.
at all.
That in some ways Skinny is your friend. If you look closely at Skinny, he's painted. Yeah. And the red are sites of origins. The blue, insertions.
Oh.
So let's look at Skinny from the side. What is this red area? It's the origin of what muscle? Temporalis. Where's this blue area along the ramus and angle? This is what? That would be the insertion of the masseter. The insertion of the masseter. Okay?
Why is he only colored on one side?
Well, because that's the way God made him.
God.
Yes.
Do you
Okay.
have like a barcode line?
Well, I'm sure there's some type of guide somewhere. Okay.
He threw it away. He doesn't need that.
Wait, you guys don't need that.
A God.